If you are sitting on 200K, 500K, maybe even 900K, you are in the hardest spot. Too much money to gamble, not enough to finally feel free. What you really need is 2-3 million to finally feel comfortable. And the truth is that's possible with crypto, but only if you follow a system that lets you survive cycles and compound. Most traders never even get there. They scatter capital across 20 or 30 coins, even more, some 50, 80 coins. They sell too early, they buy back too high, they bleed instead of compound. One mistake can set them back years. What you need is precision, a framework that keeps you calm in chaos, because without it, psychology will eat you alive. I've seen dozens of traders live the same story, round-tripping profits, missing out on massive moves, ending up with nothing or just average returns. That was their reality until they implemented the system I'm about to share with you. Smart money already uses this exact system, and if you want to break out of 6 figures into 7, you must use it too. Welcome to the 3-bucket system. Most people never reach a 7-figure portfolio. Not because it is impossible, but because they do not have a clear framework. They get caught in the same cycle every time. They buy too many coins, they have no clear rules, and they let emotions decide when to buy and when to sell. And so their portfolio grows during the bull run. Everything grows then, but collapses during the bear market. They repeat the same mistakes over and over again. What changes everything is structure, a clear system. When every dollar in your portfolio has a clear role, you stop second guessing and sabotaging yourself. That is what the bucket system does. It forces clarity, it forces discipline. And it makes sure you survive the down cycles while compounding in the up cycles. So let me show you exactly how it works. We have 3 buckets: the core bucket, the harvest bucket, and the dry powder bucket. Let's start with the core bucket. This is your conviction capital. It is mostly made up of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe 1 or 2 long-term blue chips if you truly believe in them. The purpose of the core is not to deliver excitement. It is not to make you rich overnight. The core gives you continuity. It keeps you exposed to the market across the entire cycle. When Bitcoin rallies further than you expected, your core makes sure you are not the trader who sold too soon and then sat on the sidelines in regret. The rule is clear. You hold the core through the majority of the cycle. You only trim at extreme predefined targets. You do not touch it because of daily noise. So when you do trim, the profits have a clear destination. Most flow into dry powder, the 3rd bucket, to prepare for future rebuys, and a small portion can move directly into your bank account if you want to fund lifestyle. That's why we are in this game anyway. That way the core stays intact as your anchor while still rewarding you at the right moments. So the core is your anchor, the anchor of your portfolio. Without it, you drift. With it, you always stay connected to the cycle. Now comes the 2nd bucket. This is the harvest bucket. This is where you play offense. Here you hold altcoins, meme coins, ICOs, and other higher beta plays. These assets are explosive. They can multiply 5x, 10x, or even 50x in value, but they can also crash 90% or more. That is exactly why they do not belong in your core, the 1st bucket. The harvest's job is to turn volatility into realized gains. You trim into strength, you take profits as the market rallies, and you transfer those profits into cash. And this is where most traders fail. They sell an altcoin, but then they FOMO back in at a higher price, looking for greater gains and even greater gains because they get greedy. They have no clear system in place that gives them enough discipline to take the profits and put them on the side. They do not harvest, they churn, and they lose discipline. So the golden rule is simple. Profits flow into cash, not straight back into coins. From there, the flow is clear. Most profits move into dry powder. We'll get into this bucket right now, where they wait for the next reset, which could be a market correction, a bigger market correction like a liquidation event, or the bear market. A smaller portion can be taken out into your bank if you want to enjoy lifestyle, and at times a limited slice of those profits can be redeployed, as I said before, with dry powder into extreme opportunities like a liquidation, candles, or local capitulations inside a bull run. So, for example, in 2024, we had a local bottom around summer after the top in March. Then again, we had one earlier this year of 2025. Then again, this summer, there was a nice local bottom. You could have bought there, so on. But you don't want to deploy all your dry powder, but some of it. So think of it like farming. When a farmer harvests, he does not throw the crops back into the field, he stores them. He keeps a portion for his family, and only if the conditions are perfect does he plant some back into the soil. That is how you harvest. That is how your harvest must work. Now let's get to the last bucket, that's the dry powder. And before we get into this, I just want to let you know, no pressure at all, if you are serious about your portfolio and finally getting to your dream number, feel free to schedule a diagnosis call with me. It's one-on-one, completely free. I will analyze your current situation, point out any weaknesses that could cause your portfolio, and show you what you need to change immediately. So no pressure at all. If you want to schedule a call one-on-one with me, check the first link in below this video. Let's get right back into it. So we have the dry powder bucket. This is the last bucket before we get into two very common questions we have when it comes to the bucket system. And then at the end, I will summarize again so you have a clear picture. The third bucket, the dry powder bucket. This is your stable coin and cash reserve. Its job is not to grow during the bull run. Its job is to wait patiently for the bear market and local bottoms. You do not spend this money on lifestyle. You do not waste it chasing FOMO. You protect it. Your dry powder is your weapon. When the market collapses. While retail panics, you are calm because you have capital ready to deploy at redefined rebuy zones. This is how you turn a sudden crash or a bear market from something painful into something productive. And here's the key. Dry powder grows only from harvest profits, and at extreme cycle tops, it can also be fed by trimming a small part of the core. Never from your paycheck, and never by rotating core into alts mid-cycle. Every time you secure gains from altcoins, those profits flow into this bucket. Over time, it becomes the reserve that reloads both your core and your harvest at the bottoms. A small portion of dry powder can also be used tactically inside a bull run when liquidation candles or panic wicks create high probability entries. But the majority must remain untouched, reserved for true resets. That is what makes dry powder your secret weapon. So now let's get into two very common questions that I get asked when it comes to the bucket system. The first one is, how much should go into each bucket? Well, in most cases, the core holds around 50 to 60% of the portfolio. This is your anchor in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other conviction plays, but keep it tight and blue chips only. The harvest usually takes 20 to 30%. This gives you enough exposure to capture those 5 or 10x moves, but not so much that it crash wipes you out. And the rest belongs in dry powder, between 10 and 30%, depending on where we are in the market, of course. In the late stages of a bull run, your dry powder should be higher, as you harvest more aggressively from your risky altcoin plays, and in the early bull, you can let the core carry more weight. These ranges are not random, they flex with the cycle, but they always keep you balanced. And that balance is what allows you to compound instead of bleed. And this brings us to the second question, which is, what if one bucket suddenly outweighs another massively? This will most likely happen. Here we have, so this can happen when a bucket surges far beyond its target allocation, not just from one coin in harvest, but also from broader market moves like a massive Bitcoin rally overweighing core, or altcoins exploding in harvest. In most cases, the core starts around 50 to 60% of the portfolio. But if it balloons to 80% or more due to a rally, it is time to rebalance. The harvest might grow from 20, 30% to 50% or more if your high beta plays take off. This is where your rebalancing shines. You sell portions of your winners, the overweight bucket, into strength. The rest belongs in dry powder, which might shrink relatively to 5-10% during euphoria. Rebalancing directs trims here to restore balance, usually back to 10-30%, but keep in mind that the rebalancing has to be met with the stage of the cycle. If you're at the end of a cycle, it is totally normal that your dry powder will outweigh the other buckets. These adjustments are not random, they flex with the cycle, but always follow predefined rules. Trim what is overweight, flow it into what is underweight, primarily dry powder, and never chase or panic sell. That discipline is what allows you to compound instead of bleed, and you'll sell winners methodically, and you always have capital ready for the next cycle of opportunity. So let us summarize again these three buckets here. We have the core bucket, your conviction capital. I recommend you take a screenshot of this so you can save it and apply it to your portfolio. So in the core bucket, you have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and at most one or two blue chips. Its purpose is continuity and a long-term exposure to the cycle. The rule we have here in place is hold through the cycle, trim only at extreme predefined targets, and when trimmed, profits flow first into dry powder or sometimes into lifestyle. Then we have the second bucket. This is the harvest bucket, your action capital. It contains altcoins, meme coins, ICOs, and higher beta plays. Its purpose is convert volatility into realized gains. The rule we have here in place is sell into strength, move profits into cash. From there, most flow into the dry powder bucket, and a small skim can fund lifestyle. Never recycle straight back into coins. Always wait for local bottoms, liquidation candles, and so on, or the bear market. Then we have the last bucket, the dry powder bucket, which is your rebuy capital. It contains cash and stable coins. Its purpose is dry reserves for bear markets and local bottoms. The rule we have here in place is it's fed by harvest profits and occasionally core trims at cycle extremes, usually towards the end of a cycle or towards the end of a local top, deployed only at defined bottoms or rare local capitulations, never touched for lifestyle, never. Then we have an overview of how this could look like, just an example. During a bull cycle, we have the early bull market. Usually the core will be around 60% of the whole portfolio, your harvest between 20 to 30%, and the dry powder between 10 and 20%. Then towards the end of the bull market, so the late bull market, the harvest is usually trimmed down to about 10%. Your dried powder swells high up to about 40-60%, and your core is down to 30-40% with trimming only at extremes. The bear market looks as following. You have the core at 30-40%, and the harvest is below 10%. This has to do something with Bitcoin dominance. I will create a whole other video on that one. But in most of the time, altcoins will underperform Bitcoin in a bear market, and even at the early stage of a bull market. So you don't want to hold altcoins during that time. So as soon as the bull market is confirmed, you want to slowly want to buy up some coins that belong into the harvest bucket, but not in the bear market. That's not the time. Usually, in most cases, in 95% of the times, your altcoin will underperform Bitcoin during a bear market and even during early bull market phases. So this has something to do with Bitcoin dominance. I will do a separate video just on that. And during the bear market, dry powder will have about 60 to 70%, and you'll deploy gradually from there. I recommend you watch my video on how to spot local and how to spot bottoms and tops in crypto, so you know when to deploy your dry powder or when to increase it. So why does it work? Why does the 3-bucket system work? Without buckets, your portfolio is chaos. You trim into strength, but FOMO back in higher. You end up overweight in alts at the wrong time. You end up overexposed to Bitcoin when it matters most. With buckets, every dollar has a job. The core gives you continuity. The harvest monetizes volatility. Dry powder reloads you at the bottoms. So buckets bring order. Buckets bring clarity, and clarity is what protects you from destructive emotions. That's how smart money works. This is how you stop trading like retail. This is how you start sticking to your system. This is how you step into the mindset of smart money. The 3-bucket system is natural to use, and that is why it works so well. So let's get to the closing lesson of this 3-bucket system. If you're sitting on a portfolio between 200K to 900K, you already know the truth. You have too much money to gamble, but you do not have enough to live with real freedom. You feel the pressure every time the market moves. You know one wrong decision can set you back years. And that is why most traders in your position never break through. They stay stuck in the same cycle, chasing too many coins, taking profits without discipline, panicking at the bottom. But this is exactly where the bucket system changes everything. It gives you clarity when the noise is loud. It gives you discipline when emotions are high, and it keeps you compounding while others are bleeding. You do not need luck to turn 500,000 into 2 or 3 million US dollars. You need a system that works when it matters most. That is what I've shown you today. So if you are serious about your portfolio, about growing it, and finally reaching your dream numbers, make sure to schedule a one-on-one diagnosis call with me. It's totally free. I will analyze your current situation, point out the weaknesses that could cost your portfolio right now, and show you exactly what needs to change. First link below. May God bless you.